Ladies and gentlemen, in this video, I wanted to talk about helping you land your dream role or your dream opportunity or your dream job. I was having a conversation with someone not that long ago, and we were talking a little bit about kind of the job market right now and, the job search and things of that nature. Although I am employed, I've been kind of, seeing what's out there in the sales world and, I've actually personally had success with landing. I probably had, 15 interviews in the last month or two. And I was talking with someone else and they were voicing to me how they were having issues landing an interview. And it's kind of funny, it's actually harder, in my opinion, to land an interview than it actually is to crush an interview, because at least in my experience, every time that I've gotten to an interview, it normally goes well, but getting to that first step can actually be semi-challenging. I've experienced it myself in the past. I've spoken to others who've experienced it in the past and the present, and I wanted to talk a little bit about helping you land interviews or helping you land that dream job or role. So I'm going to break this down into kind of four main components that I think you need to help you land your dream job. And the first one is obvious, but it's about your resume. You need to craft an elite resume, right? Back in the day, 50 years ago, people still needed resumes, but it was definitely, a little different. Back in the day, you would walk into a place, you would put a piece of paper down on the table, you'd have a conversation with them, and if you were somewhat competent and you kind of somewhat knew what you were talking about, they'd probably hire you. And nowadays, it's a little more superficial. You have a lot of people that lie about certain things online. You have, AI and, software ATS, applicant tracking systems that are scanning resumes for a lot of these companies. And you got to get through a lot of stuff to kind of get to that first step. Not to mention there's multiple rounds too. So let's talk about the resume, right? The resume is simply something that you need to land that first interview and to get past the AI scanners, to get past the applicant tracking system scanners. You need a good resume. So what does a good resume look like? Now, I'm not claiming to be Mr. Resume. I'm not claiming to be the best resume writer in the world. But to give you some background on me, I have been a recruiter in the past in the STEM field, science, technology, engineering, math. I personally reviewed thousands of resumes, and I personally interviewed and conducted phone screens on hundreds of candidates that are on the market. So I'd like to think I know a little bit about resumes, and in my opinion, unless you're 40 years old plus, unless you have a really extensive career and you necessarily really need to have a long resume, I would say keep it a page, right? And I would say if you have a bachelor's degree, I would put it on there. If you don't have a bachelor's degree, you could put it on, you could put an associate's on there if you want, if you have one, but I wouldn't necessarily be plastering that right at the top. I would have a nice, neat, clean resume. And if anyone wants a template that I personally use or wants an example of my personal resume, I'd be happy to send that over to you. But what you're really going to want to do is have it neat, clean, and organized. Have your experience listed there with the company. And then you can put the dates as well of when you work there, your title, and then maybe 5, 6, 7 bullet points of key day-to-day responsibilities in that role. And you want to give specifics and you want to be direct in your communication, right? So you don't want to sit there and write a paragraph of what you do in a job. You want to do bullet points that are one line long, and you want them to be very direct, right? So instead of saying something like, I made cold calls or I made phone calls for the business and I talked to this many people, I would just say conducted 50 phone calls daily and exceeding all performance metrics, right? So make it very specific. Don't sit there and write paragraphs or run on sentences, and make sure it's neat, clean, organized. Keep it to one page, and really just think of position you're applying to. It's kind of let's say you're running a business. You have to think of your customers and what they want. Well, you have to think of what the employer wants, and you should actually tailor your resume to the job you're applying to, or at the very minimum to the industry or position that you're applying to, right? The second aspect to help you land your dream job would be to figure out what industry/role you want to work in. So what do I mean by that? You can't be sending the same resume to apply to a director of operations than you do to a HR manager, right? So you have to tailor your resume to kind of what you want to accomplish with that resume or what position you want to work in. Me personally, I work in sales and I have a sales specific resume, something that I use to help get me interviews in the sales field. But whether you're in sales, whether you're in marketing, whether you're, a nurse, whether you're, a police officer, whatever it may be, you need to tailor your resume to the industry or niche that you want to work in. So if you want to get into the logistics industry, or if you want to get into, the manufacturing industry, or if you want to get into the healthcare industry, you need to use terminology and keywords that both the AI and also humans would recognize from people in the industry, right? So in sales, there's a lot of terms like, KPIs, metrics, pipeline, sales qualified opportunities. Like there's a lot of like lingo in that world. In healthcare, I don't work in healthcare, but there's going to be lingo in healthcare, right? So if you want to work in the industry, tailor your resume to the keywords that the systems are going to pick up on and the humans are going to see as well with their own eyes. And that's something a lot of people don't even think of. But the third one is network your way into an interview. So I do think that you should still definitely craft an elite resume, and I do think that you should tailor your resume. But at the end of the day, you need to still network your way into the company that you want to work for. So what do I mean by that? LinkedIn, right? If you're not using LinkedIn, you're behind. Okay, you need to be using LinkedIn. Unless you're going to work on an oil field or an oil rig in the middle of the ocean, any other job besides that, you're going to want a LinkedIn, right? How do you start with that? Well, you don't have a picture of you from high school and you don't have a picture of you at a bar, right? You need a nice, clean picture of you in a suit or in a nice shirt or something with a good background, whether that's just a white drop background or just a sign behind you or something, with a nice, clean headshot of you. You can get that professionally done probably for $100. You could pay someone, $50 to take it for you, or you can do it yourself. But regardless, you need a nice picture of yourself. And I'm sure you either got that. And if you don't, you need to get that because it's well worth it. So the first step, make a LinkedIn. Second step, nice picture. Third step is connect with literally everyone you know. Just start connecting with people. I send a ton of connection requests every week in my current business and role, just because I'm reaching out to prospects. But you can send connection requests to really anyone. I mean, there's no downside to it. You're just gaining more connections and possible people that might know people that are hiring. So there's literally no downside to it. And what you want to do on your LinkedIn too, have a nice bio, right, of what you want to accomplish. So me personally, in my LinkedIn bio, I have something related to what I do with sales and prospecting and things like that. So whatever you want to get into, make a statement in your bio of what you're looking to get into or what you're passionate about or what your strengths are. And then also go down to your experience on LinkedIn and literally just take the same bullet points that are in your resume and paste them under your work experience. Now, when a hiring manager goes on your LinkedIn, they can literally see your elite level crafted resume bullets that are on your LinkedIn too. So you're ahead of the game. They don't even have to have your resume. They already got it, right? So set expectations early up front and know that you're about what you say and you have an elite level LinkedIn. You want that. And another little tool I have is this costs extra money. LinkedIn Sales Navigator, I think it's $50, $100 a month. So you don't have to get that. But even without LinkedIn Sales Navigator, you can find most of the time who's hiring on LinkedIn. So let's say you wanted to apply to a company that, or let's say you wanted to apply to a sales position, right? Let's say it was the role was sales rep at Johnson & Johnson. I'm just using an example. You could literally type in on LinkedIn Johnson & Johnson, and then you could search it, and then you could go to the filters and put people. It'll give you a list of all the people that work at Johnson & Johnson on LinkedIn. Then you could filter it down even more. You could do HR department, right? You could look for the hiring. You could literally type in Johnson & Johnson hiring manager, and it would probably spit you out a person. Then all you do, click on their LinkedIn, send them a connection request, add a note and say, hi, Julia, I just applied for the role XYZ. I think I'd be a great fit because of ABC. Would you be open to chat for 15 minutes? And, I'd love to learn more about the company. It's that simple, guys. When I do that, I get people who reply to me. It's not that hard. It's just social proof. Unfortunately, we can debate back and forth, if it's a good or bad thing, but the unfortunate reality is 2025, it's a digital world, whether that's, Instagram, LinkedIn, all this stuff, people like seeing social proof that you have a nice, clean, organized LinkedIn, and that you can make connections and make conversations with people. And it's the same thing with, rejection, and every no gets you closer to a yes. Every time you reach out to someone, there's a way better chance that you're going to get that job or at least land an interview if you're at least inquiring about the company. The last topic is crush the interview, right? At the end of the day, just like baseball, nothing matters until the ninth inning when that closing pitcher comes in. They got to get it done. Same thing with this. Landing interviews are good, but what's better than getting an interview? Getting an offer. Getting a physical job offer in your hand or via email is better than just getting an interview. So let's talk about that. I feel like a lot of people overthink interviewing, and I'm not even saying this is the best route to take, but me personally, I don't sit there and prepare for hours on end for interviews. I might prepare for like 10 or 15 minutes, but that's really about it. And let me give you some advice here. So what I do personally with the interview is, obviously you're going to be answering their questions, but you need to also prepare some questions for them, because the reason is they're trying to qualify you. So you should be trying to qualify them, right? If you're a strong candidate and you know that you can do the job, you want to make sure that this company is a company that you want to work for, right? So I would recommend having at minimum 5 questions that you're going to ask the person, whether it's the hiring manager or whether it's, operations manager, VP of sales, whatever that's going to be. You need to have questions for them, and you need to tailor those questions to who you're talking to. If you're meeting with a VP of sales, the questions you ask him are going to be different than if you're meeting the HR manager. So just keep that in mind. And when you get asked a question, right? So when you're sitting there, whether it's Microsoft Teams, Zoom, or even in person, when someone asks you a question, don't get nervous, right? Speak slowly, controlled, and concisely, and give them the right answer. And when they ask you a question, pause for a second. And what I like to do a lot of times, and this comes naturally, but if you really want to implement this, you could just think about it. I like to implement the STAR method. I don't know if you ever heard of this, but the STAR method is simply situation, task, action, result. So when you get a question and they're like, tell me about a time you had a difficult situation in your job and you overcame it, right? You're going to say, well, there was a situation where XYZ happened and I did ABC and that resulted in XYZ result, right? So just use that framework, right? A perfect example could be, if they ask, like, tell me about a time where, you came up short, and how did you, come back and hit your goals next time, or some question like that. Any question they ask about you can do the STAR method, or at the very least, just acknowledge their question and respond in a way that makes you look well, but also you're still being yourself, and you're not going to sit there and lie or something, right? But just answer in an honest way, and the STAR method, I feel like, gives a good organized way to answer questions effectively. The last thing I want to add here too is when you are interviewing with someone, always quote unquote close them. So what I mean by that is, in sales, you always want to set a next step for the most part. So when you're in an interview, don't just be like, oh yeah, it was great to meet you, bye. No, don't do that. One question I like to ask at the end of the interview is something along the lines of like, well, name, I've enjoyed our time chatting. It was great to learn more about the company, especially ABC. I believe I'd be a great fit for the role, so I wanted to ask, do you have any concerns with my fit for the role? And if you do, I'd love to address that. So you're pretty much just putting it out there. Hey, I know I can do this job. Do you have any concerns with my ability to do the job? And they're either going to say, no, I have no concerns, which is what I normally hear. Or if they do say yes, well, you can address them right then and there, right? So it's always good to ask a closing question like that, really get their feedback right then and there. And then assuming they say, no, there's no concerns, we'd love to, move you forward to the next steps, get concrete, whether it's a date or just clear expectations of, what those next steps are and when that's going to be. So, either way, it was great to kind of talk a little bit more about this. I know a lot of people struggle out there in terms of landing interviews, landing jobs, and it is kind of a war zone out there in the corporate world. So hope this information did help you below. Drop some comments below if, you have some trouble with whether it's landing interviews, whether it's, you can't find the roles that you really like. I'm open to other feedback or other ideas on videos I can make. I'd love to kind of help you guys in any way, especially with, landing interviews or landing a dream job that you guys have. So, all right, guys, till next video.